Hey guys, Ultra here. Welcome back to the channel. Bringing you a new video, this time showing my settings walkthrough for my new Alienware 32-inch 4K QD OLED gaming monitor. Now, again, want to note a few things here before jumping in with these settings. Now, first and foremost, just like I've done with any of my other settings walkthrough videos, this is just a link mainly to be sitting in the pinned comment of my POV videos, so you can use this for reference when you're watching any of those videos and what settings I'm using. Now, to go along with that, the settings here are all my personal preference, right? This is not like some professional calibration or anything like that. This is simply just me and how I like the game. And again, just to give you that point of reference for when you watch my videos, you know how my settings are set up. Now, there's a lot of, I don't want to say controversy, but with this monitor, there's a whole lot of different settings and walkthroughs and recommendations. And so, in that spirit, I've tried many different settings types, particularly with the monitor and HDR settings, looking on Reddit, YouTube, other YouTube videos, etc. So, the settings here are kind of a combination of checking a lot of those things out. And again, just doing my own personal testing to what I like for, to my own eye. Especially when you consider that I do play in a dark room and everything like that. So what you're going to see here is, again, just an overall, combination of the things I've read, and like I said, just what I've grown to prefer with my my overall settings. So with that, what we're going to go ahead and start with is my monitor settings directly. Now, to do that, this is one of those monitors that actually has certain settings that are specific to SDR and HDR mode. So what we're going to do here first for just overall calibration so I can walk you guys through it is I'm actually going to turn Windows HDR off. Now, the reason for that, again, is this is one of those monitors that when HDR is off, you gain access to a few more settings that you don't when it's on, particularly being able to change some of the presets. All right. Now, sorry, I'm kind of a little awkward trying to move all this with the mic and everything. But here, first off, now that we have HDR off, the big thing that comes available in your settings menu is being able to select the preset modes. Now, the one I'm using here is Creator. Now, if you go to Creator, you have some settings that you can adjust from here. What I'm doing is I'm using the sRGB color space. And then for Gamma, I have that set to 2.2. Now, that's really the only thing that goes on here. It's worth noting, right? Game enhanced mode is off. That's where you can kind of set like your FPS in the corner, things like that. Now, that's all there. Dark stabilizer is set to 0. Now, within this mode is where you can also adjust brightness and contrast. This goes away once HDR is turned on. But here, for brightness and contrast, I have brightness. I've turned that up to 100, and I've left contrast at 75. Now, last thing, coming down to display, this is where you can change out your HDR settings. Now, I've left sharpness at its default, which is 50, and then here for smart HDR, this is where you can select again HDR mode. What I've done for this is I'm using the HDR True Black setting for, oh, sorry, adjusting my mic, using the display HDR True Black setting here, right? This is basically the display HDR 400 compared to the HDR Peak 1000. Again, just personally, I prefer the uniformity of the brightness that this setting provides. When you turn HDR 1000 on, it's just the overall picture is dimmer. Now, again, it's because it's trying to obviously manage the overall contrast and brightness. And again, I know some people prefer that. Like I said, just for me, I like the display HDR True Black, and I do that in combination with Dolby Vision, which is set to bright. Now, when it comes to Dolby Vision, it's important to note that this is dependent on the content that you're playing, if it even supports Dolby Vision. So, again, in almost all cases, Dolby Vision isn't supported. So, at least at the time. So, just want to note that. But again, that's set to bright. That's for the most part, though. Playing most games, it's going to kind of, in terms of settings, it's going to refer back to that HDR True Black 400. Now, that's all my relevant monitor settings and how I've set that up here. Now, let me go ahead and back in this menu, turn HDR back on in Windows. And so with HDR back on, and again, having the settings I've done, what I also have here worth noting is the color profile via Windows HDR calibration. Now, I'm not going to go through that because, again, that's just, that actually has instructions when you do Windows HDR calibration, that tool. It has instructions. I didn't do anything special. I follow those instructions down to the T there. Again, just follow the pictures. The one thing of note is the final screen of Windows HDR calibration lets you adjust some of the saturation for the image. I have set that to 60, so like just one tick above the middle part of the bar. 50 obviously being the middle, so 60 is what I have set that saturation to. Again, just because I like some of the extra the color that it provides. Now, what really important to note here, I'm going to bring my NVIDIA control panel up, that here in these settings, when you go to adjust desktop color settings, these are all default. So I have not adjusted anything here. Some people, and again, you can do this if you want on PC, right? You can adjust brightness if you want to increase that, or maybe even adjust digital vibrance if you want to get some extra color, and just kind of boost things there. Again, I have not done any of that for this monitor. I'm personally okay without having to make any of these adjustments. So everything I've done is purely a function of just the Windows HDR calibration tool, and really specifically dialing in the monitor settings themselves, and how much that can help. Now, like I said, if you do have this monitor, please feel free to experiment between the display HDR True Black setting and HDR Peak 1000. Again, even just when exploring different forums and kind of gather my own thoughts and kind of get some recommendations, right? Everyone's pretty split on this. And so, again, I think it just comes down largely to your viewing environment. Again, I personally prefer the overall brightness of the image that the HDR 400 can provide. So, again, I stick with that and have had a really great time with it. Now, with all that said, I do want to note one last thing here before the end of the video, that all of my settings that you've seen here for the monitor are what I also use for console, right? So just the HDR 400, Dolby Vision set to bright, and then worth noting that when you have a console plugged in, on that first menu, there is a setting for enable console mode. I have that turned on. That's really the only difference when it comes to, for example, playing on my PS5 Pro. Like, I have that turned on, the console mode, but otherwise everything is the same. Those are the relevant settings, right? The HDR 400, Dolby Vision bright, etc. Those are all kept the same. Now, with that, that's all I have here. Go ahead and let me know in the comments what you guys think, especially if you have any questions or anything like that. And like I said, this is going to be the video that is pinned to all of my future Alienware videos. And of course, if I do update any settings or play with them more and settle on a different overall settings function, I will create a new video. And of course, that will be linked in the videos that use it. So anyways, like I said, I really appreciate you guys for watching. Please don't forget that like button and subscribe. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you later.